Hi folks, I wanted to talk to you about a fragrance today that I once wore that I just rediscovered. In fact, I spoke about it in a recent haul video, and I'm talking about Paul Sebastian PS for Men Fine Cologne, this fragrance right here. It's a cheapie. It's around $18 for 120 ml, and it still smells great today, and it garners me compliments. So you're going to want to discover this fragrances if you like your fragrances musky, aromatic, spicy, and also fragrances that garner you compliments. And if you want to learn about this cheapie, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Sebastian. I'm talking to you about Paul Sebastian PS Fine Cologne for Men. Have you guys worn this fragrance? You know, I rediscovered it recently. I was visiting family, and my brother has a collection of fragrances, and I was going through some, and he gave me some of his vintage fragrances, or older fragrances, I should say. Several of them I spoke about on the channel some time ago, but he also had a bottle of this in his collection because he discovered it from me, obviously. I smelled it and I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to take it from him. He wouldn't give it to me. So I decided to order this fragrance again. And the last time I wore it probably was towards the end of the 90s, and I hadn't worn it again. I got tired of it because obviously you get tired of fragrances and you move on to others. But I wore this in the early 90s, around 92, 93, 94, even into 95 and 96. And I think around that time is when I stopped wearing this fragrance. I was wearing fragrances, mostly fragrances like Safari from Ralph Lauren, Lauren, I should say. There's Calvin Klein's Eternity. There's Platinum Egoiste from Chanel. There was a Hugo Boss fragrance, the Carolina Herrera fragrance, a Paco Rabanne Excess. All of these fragrances were fragrances I was wearing at the time. Later on, you know, wearing fragrances like La Male, ISSEY de MIYAKE's l'Odyssée pour Homme, and, you know, Armani's ACQUA de Joe, eventually into Amen. So it was a great fragrance that I had discovered in the early 90s, but the fragrance was launched in 1979. So it's a classic fragrance. And I think around the 80s, I knew about this one, never really wore it. Maybe I felt it was a bit mature. I don't know. Even at that time in my teens, I felt it was mature. But in the early 90s, I decided to give it a go. The fragrance has lost some of its depth and intensity, and it does go down pretty fast. And I don't think this is an eau de toilette. It does say cologne on it, so I think it acts like an eau de toilette, but it does say cologne, but it is on the light side, and it does go down pretty fast. But the smell to me brings back many memories of the early 90s when I was wearing this. Sure, I'm remembering that it used to be thicker and denser and a lot longer lasting, but to me, this thing has legs. It has great strength and lingering power. I wouldn't call this a beast mode fragrance or a room filler or anything like that. But for me, it's the muskiness that's in here mixed in with the warm spices and the aromatics like lavender. There's also cloves here, or something clove carnation like. So it's a fusion of musky notes, earthy notes, even floral notes here, because in the heart you've got floral notes. But I think for me what really stands out is the musk, the lavender, and the cloves, and eventually becoming ambery in the dry down with earthy woods and things like that. But I think it's a great classic. So it was launched in 1979. It's considered a musky, amber floral / Fougere style fragrance. Now Macys only sells this fragrance right here, this size. And actually, speaking of Macys, I bought it at a Macys. I used to frequent the Macys men's fragrance counter so often. I think there were so many great fragrances at the time and brands that I was so familiar with, and also some under the radar brands that launched great fragrances but not spoken about a lot of people. So the big brands got all the hype and the smaller brands didn't. This is one of those smaller brands. In fact, when you look at the history of this brand, Paul Sebastian, there's not a lot of fragrances in their catalog. In fact, a lot of their fragrances, like Design, that was designed for men and for women. I remember in the 2000s, they were clearing out at places like Marshall's and TJ Maxx and Ross and things like that. So at the time, I saw those fragrances there. I don't see much anymore. I think there's not much stock left out there. In fact, probably this is the only fragrance in the catalog of Paul Sebastian fragrances that still exists. And I like that it's still here, and I'm glad I rediscovered it because, as I was saying, this does garner compliments. I've received 2 compliments so far, and I like that about it. And again, I'm a liberal sprayer, so I spray a lot. It does go down faster because this is on a lighter. It's not thick, dense. It's not extrait de parfum, heavy, sticky. It doesn't have those qualities. But as a smell, to me, I really, really love the smell. And yeah, so I bought it at Macys. And Macys only has this size, and I wrote down the prices. So this is a 240 ml bottle. Macys, when I was taking my notes down, was selling this for $65, but their suggested retail price was $76 on this. This is a splash bottle, and so you can't spray it, you can decant it. But I bought this mostly for collecting because I really love it. It means a lot to me. I wore it in the early 90s, and again, as I'm saying, I'm glad I rediscovered it. So it does come in a box like this. Sadly, it was not cellophane wrapped. So, but still, I think the box is in pretty decent condition. And so on here, it says distributed in USA by somebody else. And on here, in the video I did, the haul video, which I talked about this is what I received. I bought another, so I bought this late March. Then I ordered these two in April sometime. And I decided, since this came in full presentation, the main fragrance I've been wearing, I'd order another tester. And the tester came in this padded envelope with Elizabeth Arden written on it. It was open. That's how they sent it. And there's no cap because it's a tester. Now, I wanted to have more because it's just a great smell, and the smell is so fantastic. It's just overdosed with muskiness. And I think this is what really got me the compliment, because I spritz on a lot of it on, and I went through my day, and it was early in the morning. And then I spritzed a bit more on in the car, got out and got into an elevator, and there was a lady in the elevator as well, and she told me how great I smelled. So it was probably projecting off of me at that time, and she smelled the muskiness. And most likely, if she's got a similar nose to mine, she's picking up the lavender. It's quite prominent because that's what really is prominent up top. And also the clove smell. Like, it's a warm spice, the clove smell, and that's what I get here with the fragrance. A lot of warm spices like cloves or carnation. There's the lavender's fresh aromatic qualities, and then there's the musk. The musk is not animalic, I should say. It doesn't come off funky, but it is quite musky. And there's an underlying funk under there, but I wouldn't call this super funky. Like, it's not like totally animalic. It's just a musky fragrance, and that musk is super sexy. And I like that. Once you get past that musk, I think it's the musk that I think can be considered a bit more modern than everything else under there, because it comes off as an old school fragrance. The utilization of cloves or carnation is a bit classic, and you'll really, really be noticing that smell. It's quite prominent. It's on you, and you'll really smell cloves. It's very, very warm, spicy, and I'm associating cloves with the holidays. This doesn't really smell like holidays to me, and I feel like the cloves, there's other spices in here that are a bit nondescript, or like they're not really, you can't really tell what spices. I think there's also nutmeg credited here, but in addition to the lavender, there's also geranium here, there's celery seeds, and then you've got musk, of course, lots of musk with spices, and then there's ylang and rose as well in the heart of the fragrance. So in the heart, it does become a bit floral, but I personally don't think the flowers really stand out too much. For me, again, as I was saying, it's the musk that's really prominent, it's the lavender that's really prominent, and then it's the cloves that's really prominent. The geranium shows up a little bit as well, and I think the geranium and the lavender gives this a bit of a fougere quality. So it's floral, it's fougere, it's like a warm amber fougere style, but overdosed with a lot of musk. So when I first smelled this fragrance, I felt like it was an unusual fragrance. It didn't smell like a lot of your other fragrances that were popular in that era. And again, I most likely sampled the fragrance in the 80s because it was launched in 79. And I bought it in around 92, 93 in the early 90s. And again, I was remembering what I was wearing around that time because I bought not only this fragrance at the same Macys, but I also bought Safari from Ralph Lauren. I bought Eternity from Calvin Klein, and also Platinum Egoiste from Chanel. Those four fragrances around the time when I was wearing this, around 93, I should say, is what I was wearing quite a bit of. So it just brings back memories of me shopping at the Macys and just taking this fragrance. But it is old school. You'll be reminded of it. And again, as I was saying, when you get past the musk, it becomes an old school fragrance. It will remind you of fragrances of, you know, the 80s mostly, because this came out so late in the 70s. And there were these very spicy aromatic fragrances, Fougere style fragrances that were, you know, powerful and really intense and very masculine during the era of the 80s. And even though this has some feminine notes, again, the floral notes that are in here, I wouldn't call this a very floral fragrance. It's more about the spices, the musk, and the aromatics for me. And again, as I was saying, it also dries down to more of an amber, and I love this fragrance. It's such a great fragrance. And again, the prices on the large one at Macys, it was on sale for $65, but the suggested retail price is $76. But Fragrancenet has better deals, obviously. I buy a lot of fragrances from Fragrancenet. And in fact, if you caught my haul video from late last week, again, let me know what you guys thought about that video. I decided to not do much edits with it. I just decided to just air it without titles and everything, just talking about the fragrances. And it was like almost an hour and a half video, so there was no editing done on that video. But Fragrancenet, I buy a lot of stuff from, and I would recommend you guys buy, if you're going to buy Paul Sebastian PS Fine Cologne for men, you should definitely buy it from Fragrancenet. I think it's much better value because you can get the large 240 ml there for $23. It's so freaking cheap. So cheap. The regular in 60 ml splash is $13 and spray is $14, and 120 ml is around $20, and the 240 ml is around $23. So it's much cheaper for the large. You get a lot more juice, obviously, but you're getting no sprayer, so you'll have to come up with your own atomizers and things like that. And I think I'm a little confused with the fact that this says a different distributor in comparison to what's in this, what's written on this. So is this tester much newer than the fragrance that was sent to me in these bottles? Because the distributors are different. If anybody knows that info, please do add a comment. And it does say the different things. This one says eau de cologne. This one says cologne spray. So it says different things. And the distributor is EA Fragrances CO in New York. There's a Barcelona, Spain info on here as well. But this box doesn't have any info on London. This one does. And unfortunately with this one, there's not much info on it. So I don't really know. I'm hoping the smells are the same, but there's just, I think when a brand is just kind of like downsizing and they're getting rid of a lot of their fragrances, they kind of fall into the hands of this distributor and that distributor. Maybe this is not a distributor, Elizabeth Arden. It's just owned by the brand Elizabeth Arden, and because it's got their info right here, but it's still the same distributor as what's written on these boxes. Anyway, that's a lot of details on distribution and things like that, because that kind of stuff is always very interesting for me. But if you've sampled this fragrance, what are your thoughts on it? Again, this is not very similar to what fragrances today smell like. It's much different. So if you're someone that hasn't had experience with fragrances from decades ago, this might be not your cup of tea. Unless you have an open mind, an open palate, and you're able to appreciate fragrances like this. Because if we didn't have fragrances like this, we wouldn't have the fragrances today. So everything evolves. But if you like musky fragrances and Fougere styles and, you know, warm spices, aromatics, and things like that, you're going to really love this one. I love its lingering power, and the fact that it garners me compliments, really, really love it. It's a great fragrance if it garners you compliments. And I should also let you guys know, I don't wear fragrances for compliments. I wear fragrances for the smell. I love the way something smells and I'll wear it. And if a compliment comes in, that's even a better experience, but I'm in no way looking for a compliment. But I do enjoy being asked what I'm wearing, and I also enjoy further telling people what I am wearing, and it makes people curious because people love smells. And again, some people are not going to like this fragrance because their palate is not advanced. But obviously, I had a woman tell me how great it is. I had another couple tell me I smelled great and things like that. So people enjoy smells, certain smells, and you smell something and you'll be like, oh, you're hit with the smell. Either you like it or not. And the person that likes it, if you're wearing it, they're going to compliment you and tell you you smell great. But again, this is all coming with the territory of this fragrance. And once again, I do spritz a lot on. In fact, sometimes I spritz some on during the day. I get out and I have the fragrance with me. I spritz more like an hour later because I'm addicted to the way it smells. So I think this is also another reason why compliments do come in more and more. And again, I don't do it for the compliments because I love the way it smells and I'm addicted to it. But I do appreciate it when the compliments do come in. But I wanted to do this video to let you guys know about this fragrance. It's still out there. And if you are into old school fragrances, please give it a try. I think it's really, really great. The only negative I found, the negative is that it's also weakened. It's not as strong as it used to be. The sprayer is kind of weird. It's a bit leaky, but it is only like $20. I think I paid $18 for this when I bought it, but I think the price has gone up a little. I don't know. But it is just around $20 for 120 ml, so it's not going to break your bank. And this is pretty much the negative, but this is also a decantable bottle. As you can see, you can take this off. So I can use this to fill this bottle, but this big bottle is mostly for collector. I'm gonna use it as decoration in the studio because I really love it. I think this fragrance means a lot, and the reason I hadn't pulled it out for a long time or bought it is because I got really tired of it. It was just because of that one day I was at my brother's and he was pulled out his fragrance collection and I smelled it, and that brings back so many memories. Anyway, just a few more words about Paul Sebastian. There are other fragrances that they have launched. Casual is one of the fragrances that they had launched for men and women, and also Design. Both of these series I saw at places like TJ Maxx and Ross and Marshalls, probably in the 2000s, maybe into the earlier 2010s. I don't see them anymore, and I also don't see them at the discounters, so those are kind of gone. But there was there were several flankers that came out for the regular PS Fine Cologne. There was one called ONYX, one called Kinetic, and one called Silver. I've never smelled those. Again, when those came out, I had gotten tired of Paul Sebastian, so I did not go after new releases from Paul Sebastian because I was digging stuff that was being launched, around that particular era that were newer to me. So I kind of felt like I should have now if I could go back in time, wanted to revisit these flankers of this very fine fragrance that means a lot to me, which is sad. I didn't do it. I've never gotten my nose on those three flankers for this, and there's no way I can get my nose on them unless I find a bottle somewhere in my travels. But in the meantime, this is an amazing cheapie. Please get your nose on it, especially if you like old school fragrances, historic fragrances, and really great smelling fragrances. It smells great. But again, if your nose is not trained for classics, you're probably going to complain to me and say it smells crappy, it smells bad, it smells like grandpa, things like that. But if you appreciate the classics, don't skip this one. It's really, really awesome. I really, really love it. And I think if you love old school fragrances, you're going to love it as well. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Paul Sebastian PS Fine Cologne. Let me know your thoughts on this fragrance. Have you sampled it? I'm sure you've worn it somewhere here and there. If you've been wearing fragrances throughout your life, I'm sure you've come across this fragrance. And but do let me know what your thoughts are. Add a comment below. And thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.